It's a great question, though, LD. Like, let's just, if you're comfortable with it, tell us how you've funded this, your sites and what have you. So, who are some of your investors?
Yeah, so Sequoia Capital invested the seed, $3 million. We started in February 2017. And recently we completed round A, another 18 million from some very great investors, including Sequoia Capital. JLL Spark invested in this round. Another top Israeli VC. You can tell by my English that I'm not local, so I'm from Israel, and also NYCA from here, Mr. Hans Morris, who was the CFO at Visa and President of Visa, CFO at Citi. So these are the main investors in the round.
Rob, I think you're in the fortunate position to have self-funded mostly to date.
Completely self-funded. I think, and I applaud everybody who has to go out there and raise money. I think it's, I just looked at it and.
Do you applaud or do you sympathize?
No, I do. I really do. I think, one of the things I go back and forth because at some point I'm like, boy, it's one thing when you're just funding it yourself, you get no feedback, right? You're the boss of one. You don't have investors and a lot of experience. And one of the things I've learned at being on the board with Summit Partners and a very different perspective in the way that they approach things. And when you have an operator with a sort of a capital provider, it provides a really good insight. So I don't have to deal with boards and I don't have to deal with my decisions, but sometimes it's good to have that interaction.
Do you think that's going to change for you? Do you think at some point you'll go out and do a round and raise?
I don't know. I mean, I think we toy with the idea. We get called all the time.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, but quite frankly, I'd rather be making sales calls and going in to see customers than to do a pitch deck.
Good to be the boss. Good to be the king. And Jan, you guys have also taken a little bit of a different approach in terms of your funding. From what I know, you've gone with inside the industry, right?
Yeah. So we took a much different approach. We're a tool for the industry, so we really looked into the industry to raise our capital. We self-funded as well, part of it, but we raised a seed funding of about $3 million. We went out to the brokerage community. We have a group of founding broker councils that were kind of
What's the advantage of doing it that way?
Well, the advantage is like you have your customer base believing in what you're doing, right? I mean, your customer base is investing. The better we do, the better they do, right? And so ultimately, I mean, we look to continue doing that potentially. And then we raised it from, my partners are from very institutional places. We're also out of the brokerage firms. Gordon, our CEO, was a CBRE broker for 10 years. I was a Marcus & Millichap agent for over 7 years. We both worked at Fortress. We both did acquisitions, dispositions. So we went to, our friends that are owners of real estate, lenders of real estate, lease, very organic lease real estate, and those guys were super excited to be a part of it.
LD, we connected through our mutual friend Travis Putnam and crew over at Navitas, who I'm big admirers of, and
clearly we are as well.
Yeah, so that's a good one to have in your corner. So tell us about how you funded the site.
Yeah, so we started obviously bootstrapped, kind of like everyone else, but we just closed a $9 million seed round led by Navitas. So Jim, Travis, Gary, those folks are there. Carthana is also an investor. I was a great fund out of Australia, really active here in the States. I Look About, which is Gary Oman is the chairman there, so founder of Altus Group, acquired Argus, Real Matters. Really amazing investor, really understands real estate data. Andrew from Dream It, those folks.
Wow, terrific.
Yeah, well, also Dave, for Dave and Ryan, right? Red Swan, I guess, is whatever the entity that the last one. So really great investors, kind of a mix of folks who really get venture, but within the real estate space, and folks who are just strategic fit. We thought a lot about, what's that right mix. I kind of like having a board. I like having people that can, keep us in check, but at the same time, the kind of board that it's not going to, come every Friday and say, hey, what are our, look at the model. We're not where we're supposed to be, right? But folks should say, hey, what can I do to help, right? How's this working out? You thought X, how's that playing out, that thesis? So I actually really like that. And the flip side is, right, that you do have to kind of answer to people, but that's something which is okay if you find the right partners and we're very aggressive, clearly, in the market, and we have partners who are somehow even more aggressive than we are. So it works really well. Yeah.
So I think, in a couple minutes that we have left, one of the things that I talk about a lot in sort of the climate that we're in now is that, investment and adoption is clearly a big gap in the industry, that there's a lot of money coming in, but if you looked at the actual adoption within the sector, it's not really keeping up. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's a reflection of a very young industry and ecosystem. And I think there's gonna be many factors that'll propel it, whether it's demographics or whether it's just tech overall. But one of the big questions for all of you is, how are you going to get adoption for your site, your platform? Because it is the big challenge, right? Rob, you're building a community, you're building a marketplace, you're going to the institutions, you've got to market to the real estate owners and what have you. So what are your thoughts? I'm not asking for your marketing plan, about how you see sort of scaling in this industry. Guy, I'll start with you.
I think that one of the reasons for that is it's two different industries. One is running very fast, right, the tech business, and the real estate business by nature is much slower. I mean, you paint the wall and you need to wait for the paint to get dry. So this is a real challenge. I think this is one of the reasons why you need to have enough funding to have more time. I think real estate companies will move very fast. Real estate tech companies will move fast, but it will still be faster than a real estate play, but slower than a traditional startup in a different industry. So this is and I agree, this is one of the challenges that we're trying to solve.
Good luck.
It's
actually, it's interesting though. It's like, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you didn't see a bunch of directors of innovation at shops, And even now, as you start to go down the line, you're starting to see more people in that sort of that role. There, and now some places still it's a flawed execution. Some people just grab somebody and they don't really understand the job. I don't know if I told you this story. I was recently at a shop and their director of innovation was frustrated because she's like, I get so many calls of all these new companies. Everybody's trying to talk to me. I'm like, well, that's the greatest thing to be in. I mean, you need to have that private equity or venture capital approach on innovation. You should be sitting there looking at CRE tech every day. What's new? Okay, I want to do that, and you can start to see that. So implementation is going to happen. I think once the buy-in happens, once the people that start looking at it start to do it, I think it's important. I think the other thing too is hopefully we're going to start to see a little bit more delineation between actual innovation and implementation. I mean, right now you see the shops and some groups are innovating, like they're trying to build products themselves inside their company, a real estate shop, which is not the right place, I don't think, to try to build technology. And breaking that down and having groups that are just focused on implementation. So
great, good insights. Jan, you guys are obviously, as you talked about, it's organic, right? But how do you scale a new platform in this environment fast?
I think it's supply demand, right? I mean, those two concepts are at the heart of it. I think, the theme that I've heard also, LD mention it and reiterate is, at the heart of it is real estate, and the guy talked about it, real estate works in a certain way. It's slower. It has its own rhythm and paces. Relationships are critical to the way it works. I kind of equated, technology in my word is high IQ. Real estate is high EQ, right? Emotional, and it's that marriage is coming together. It's, it hasn't been combined just quite yet, but it's coming together where you really provide these folks that are great. They're highly capable people that have great emotional intelligence, but they need tools. And it's how do you adopt technology to the way it works and help them change it a little bit. You don't need to change it all right away, but get them using it, get them working on it, and then add more. LD,
what about from your side?
I think we're
Cherry,
a little
how do you guys-
fortunate in the sense that we don't have to educate the market about the problem. It's a problem they already have. So we have a long list of clients that we need to onboard, and it's just a matter of executing on that properly. And we're hoping that when we run out of that list, we've only done inbound, so we've never had to do outbound sales. So we're hoping that that long list of inbound, when it starts running out, that's when the rest of the market figures out what they need anyway, and that hopefully coincides. We'll find out. Educating market's always a difficult challenge. I think what's happening in our world is that we're replacing mostly processes that are very human intensive, right? So it's building your own engineering team, which is very hard for organizations that are not tech driven. They might have a director of innovation, but their engineering team is not the kind of engineering team that can really run anything. And some of them have really great engineering teams. I think CBRE is probably a good example. They have a whole building worth of engineers out in Dallas, but then you ask what they're doing. They're building these applications, or they just had this new thing about they're using Azure for something. I don't know. So there are some folks like that who are a little further ahead than some of the other folks, but most of them have no clue what to do. So replacing an operation that's mostly done by a whole bullpen of analysts doing things very manually, right? Putting stuff in Excel. That's a process that's fairly easy to replace. All you have to do is explain to the business unit, how much are you paying a year? $3 million. That could be half, worst case scenario, faster, better than anything you're doing right now. And it seems a fairly easy value proposition to sell. But as I said, we're in that fortunate position, at least for the next 18 months, if I had to guess, where we just have to knock out all this long list of folks who've reached out somewhere.
Right. What would be your message though? Like, I interact daily with either the commercial real estate brokers or commercial real estate developers or, private equity or banks and what have you that are in this ecosystem. And I'm trying to get them to pay attention, right? Every day, that's what I'm doing every single day is, hello, pay attention here. And it's challenging. I mean, our conferences are scaling, obviously is a great sign for everybody because that means more people are paying attention. But like what, to your former brethren, Marcus and Millichap and the other firms that you deal, what do you say to them that, gets them to want to pay attention to what's happening here? Because clearly something's happening. Right. And we're not going backwards. There's no bubble here. I mean, this is transformative technologies that are going to, I hate the word disrupt, but they're going to change the way the industry works. What do you say?
I say embrace tech. I say embrace tech because it's here to help you, not to replace you, right? I think that's a lot of the messaging that I hear from like, I'm going to be out of a job in, 5 years, 6. You're not going to be out of a job.
Right. I see. A lot of our independent contractors too, right? So it's not the concept. It's get better, more efficient.
You've got 1,000 great relationships. You've got a database of 5,000, whatever. Great. Well, technology could exponentially improve that, and it can potentially improve your existing relationships. It could add new relationships. Use it to do that and organize your stuff better. You have tools that act and behave like your back office, right? That you could be front and center if you're a principal talking to more brokers. Right. If you're a broker, you're talking to more principals. Yeah. If you're a tenant, you're talking to principals and brokers to get space. Right. So use tech.
Rob, what about you? You've been in real estate your whole career pretty much. What do you say to your friends, your community, people that you're talking to as to why?
It's tough because it's they're all deal junkies, right? So you have a typical real estate firm is like 4 partners that are all doing deals, and don't care about anything else. Now we're also in a peak of a market, so from the multifamily side, this first thing I'm probably going to do is look at what he's looking at because I know the last deal I chased on the multifamily side is 65 bidders. So it's to invest in myself. So I think that's it's really hard to get the attention of something unless there's that immediate result. What's that immediate benefit? And I think that's the only thing that we've been able, where I've been successful in this space, is all about finding they need to have some type of candy afterwards. What's the immediate result? I do a deal, I get rewarded, I feel good. Oh, okay, I install investor management solution. Oh, I get more investors because my investors are happier and all that kind of stuff. I install Lira, I make more money at a property. And that's sort of the only way I've figured out how to do it.
Yeah, clearly that's your value proposition, right, Guy? That feeds right into what you're doing.
Yeah, and I must say, by the way, it has to do with the timing and the pace and the adoption that you mentioned. I think that technology is coming into real estate. That we know that. I mean, and a lot of people understand that today. We were surprised. I mean, when we started the company, one of our challenges or one of our thoughts what will happen when we meet the veteran real estate investors. But I think most of them, and we were surprised about that, most of them understand that technology is entering into real estate, and that this will happen. And we met probably one of the top real estate investors. I will not mention the name, but and we showed him the product, and he said that, and he's doing real estate for, I don't know, 40 years, doing very well. And he said, I know this will happen, and my company will be, if I won't tap into this, my company will be obsolete, and I don't know how much time it will take. So I can either wait for this to happen, or I can, it would either be you doing this or someone else, but this will happen, and I can either join this or wait for this to happen.
Efficiencies are coming, right? They are coming. I mean, real estate has been dormant around efficiencies. The capital markets have created a tremendous amount.
Well, just look. I mean, that's what I look at. Is I try and always follow what fintech's doing, because I think that's a good sort of barometer to, this industry being a little bit of laggard to what's happening in financial services.
I mean, you could still look at like doctors and lawyers, right? Doctors and lawyers still exist, and those doctors that are kind of shamans or witch doctors, this is kind of no disrespect to the alternative medicine industry, but they've been replaced by doctors over the years. I think the same thing's happening in the real estate space, right? So, it's always better to disrupt yourself to be disrupted by someone else. So, to your point, right? Folks who are, we're in a world that's becoming doctors, right? And those witch doctors are still around saying, I have a hunch, I have a feeling. They're not going to outperform the markets. And those who are using technology, embrace technology to have better results, are going to outperform them 10 out of 10 times, right?
That's great. Anyway, guys, this has been fantastic. Let's just wrap up with something you're working on. What's next? What's coming from each of your sites?
Yeah, sure. So I'd mentioned earlier, part of that manual process, right now we work with existing data streams, right? Data stores, APIs, things like that. But one of the data streams that we're working on automating is that human data stream, which is the analyst in the bullpen going through a procedure, what we typically would call workflow, but it's really just a stream that's being done manually. And we're working on something to be able to automate most of the processes that happen within the investment firm.
Cool. Jan, what's next, man?
Obviously we're going to layer on lots of tools, a la carte. People could buy pictures, lease abstracting, discounted cash flows on the site. They could put all that and organize all that, get it to their clients. So all that's in place. But I think the interesting part about it is that transactions in the middle markets today take 300 days. It's an insane number, right? And so, it's from data service providers. All should it be 90?
Right.
Should it be 75?
And there's that efficiency you were talking about.
And that's the efficiency that we're talking about. So we really could streamline that process.
So more tools in the toolbox.
We're super excited about that.
Rob?
So we're adding to our partnerships, our national partners, bringing more money to the properties, and then we're really working heavy on workflows and automation in the leasing office to help with retention and better engagement.
Great. Guy?
So I mentioned the deal sourcing and analysis. So now we made our first real estate transaction. We plan to have about $250 million of AUM in the next 12 months. So we're now moving on the technology side to support the ownership and the disposition period using AI and using the data.
Well, thanks, guys, so much. Hopefully this was informative and you start to see the level of sophistication, the technology, the disruption that's coming from these 4 amazing sites. So please check out Skyline AI, Lyra, By Proxy, and Cherry. And thank you all so much for spending some time with me.